We're going to start our press conference, and this is a daily press conference and until the press conferences are no longer necessary. I'm Jeff Pomerantz, City Manager of Cedar Rapids. Before we begin with comments from a variety of our directors and Mayor Corbett, as well as some other visitors, I just want to thank a number of elected officials that are here. We're mentioning a few names because of the collaborations that have been developed with elected officials from the county and federal government and state. So it's very important during times like this that we keep these alliances and we continue to collaborate. So we appreciate all these individuals. But from Lynn County, Amy Johnson is here, Supervisor Jim Hauser, Brent Olson, also Supervisor, and Ben Rogers. So thank you for being here. From the state, Kirsten Running Marquardt is here, Senator Rob Hogue, Senator Liz Mathis. Anyone else I forgot? Thank you. And then from our federal government representing Senator Grassley is Fred Schuster. We appreciate Fred being here, and also Sam Pritchard representing Senator Ernst. So thank you very, very much. Again, during times like these, we rely on a variety of partners, so we appreciate all those individuals here today. Again, Jeff Pomerantz, City Manager. Just wanted to give you a brief update and then turn this over to our directors with some very specific information. Preparations are continuing as we work to protect our city from the predicted high water levels and probable flooding. Particularly want to thank our city employees. We're working around the clock and working tirelessly to protect our residents from property damage, as well as keeping everyone safe. As city manager, I'm extremely proud of our over 1,400 employees, and it's during times like these where you realize the value of having hardworking, competent, dedicated employees who care deeply about their community. So thank you, city employees. Also want to mention, talked about some of our partners, but we have been gratified by the number of calls we've received from other communities and entities, public and private, from around the state. And so, those aren't just calls to say, hope things go well. Those are calls where individuals, public and private, are saying, how many trucks do you need? How many people do you need? How much sand do you need? How much equipment do you need? And that kind of support is and will be very much appreciated as we move forward. This is certainly not an event we've ever hoped for, but again, we're prepared for it, and the city is ready. Particularly want to acknowledge the mayor and city council for their support and, most importantly, leadership during this situation. A couple of specific details I'd like to share before I turn this over to our Director of Public Works and other directors of the city to provide updates. One, residents in low-lying areas who anticipate flooding can park cars in the Ladd Library parking lot. And, of course, the Ladd Library is on the west side of Cedar Rapids, or also in the Westdale Mall parking lot in front of the former Von Maur store. So we appreciate the library stepping forward and also the owners of Westdale for allowing their parking lot to be used for individuals who need to park cars. Sandbagging materials are being supplied to residents and businesses by the city free of charge, and I emphasize free of charge. There was some kind of old internet entry that said that sandbags would necessitate a minor charge, but the sandbags are free. So we appreciate the media getting that word out. Sandbagging stations have been set up near the Newbo Market on 11th Street, and also at the Ellis Pavilion, Ellis Park. Volunteers are welcome to help fill sandbags and are asked to bring shovels. So I think everyone has known about the Nubo Market on 11th Street as a sandbagging station, but the Ellis Park Pavilion is new information. We want to make sure we get that out to everyone. Want to reiterate that we're using every resource available to protect the city and our citizens from harm. And we've been, again, working around the clock. We've been planning for this kind of event that you obviously hope will never happen for a long time, and so we have the right plan in place, and we're going to do everything possible to minimize damage to the city and to keep everyone safe. Just to my left is one of the tools that we're using. So everyone's familiar with sandbags, but this is an example of what we call the HESCO barrier. HESCO is the manufacturer. And so we have miles of these barriers that are filled to the top with sand. And that's just one example. We wanted to bring it here today so everyone could see exactly what we're talking about. We did have this tool to a minor extent during the 2008 period, but we now have added many of these at the city, and we also are working closely with the manufacturer. They have flown in a representative. They have a large warehouse in eastern Iowa where they're able to tap into however many of these we need at the city. So you will be seeing a variety of techniques used to fight this flood. This is one example, but whether it's sandbags or building of dams or other techniques, we've got an arsenal here that is going to be available and will be highly helpful to us. We've reached out and have received assistance, as I said, from other communities to provide trucks, HESCO barriers, and other needed equipment. Local contractors are also providing much needed assistance, and will continue to work with the private sector. Just this morning we got a call from CRST as an example, and they said they have 50 trucks ready to assist, particularly for the downtown area. But those are the kinds of calls we've been receiving, again, from the public as well as the private sectors, and we deeply appreciate those offers of assistance. And we need those offers, and we appreciate them. Again, we're extremely grateful for the outpouring of assistance that we've received on this flood protection effort, and we're going to continue to work and get ready for protecting the vulnerable areas of Cedar Rapids over the coming days. Before I introduce our Public Works Director, I again wanted to acknowledge our City Council members who are here, and very much appreciate, again, their support. So our first speaker will be Jen Winter, our Director of Public Works.
Good morning. At this time, we have no change in the anticipated forecast and the level. Early this morning, briefly, the forecast was reduced to 22 feet, and it has now been increased back to 24. So we are still mobilizing our flood control efforts to protect to the 24-foot level. Our city staff from public safety, sewer engineering, traffic, streets, and other departments have been assembling equipment, staff, and resources to put these measures in place. Today, our focus will be on both sides of the river. In some of our low-lying areas, we'll be installing HESCO barriers, as Jeff demonstrated here, as well as earthen berms and levees to try to build up that protection in multiple places. On the east side of the river, we have multiple contractors mobilized that will be working between 1st Avenue and 16th Avenue along the river. On the west side, our focus today will be along Ellis Boulevard in the Time Check area, and we'll also be doing some berm and levee work down in the Czech Village area. We are asking the public to be patient and aware. There may be short notice temporary closures in order to get these HESCO barriers and these berms built and allow the contractors access. We need the contractors to be able to get in there and build this as efficiently and safely as possible. So we're asking the public to stay away from these areas if you see contractors working, and to find alternate routes where necessary. This morning, the crews closed 8th Avenue from 2nd Street to 5th Street to install the HESCO barriers that will be going up along 8th. So we're asking people to find alternate routes from 8th Avenue. Some road closures have already begun in some of our low-lying areas, including Otis Road and Ellis Road west of Edgewood due to rising waters in those areas. And last night, late, we made the decision to close the boat ramps. So we are allowing boats to come out. We are not allowing any access onto the river at this time. We've had many questions regarding sandbagging. As the city manager mentioned, we will be opening up another location at Ellis Park near the Overlook Pavilion. We anticipate that to open shortly. It should be open by 11 a.m. if it hasn't already been opened. The public can access that. We're asking the public to access that from Zika Avenue, as there will be a lot of work going on Ellis today, and eventually Ellis will likely be closing. So we're asking the public again to access that through Zika Avenue. We've already seen many members of the community step up and volunteer. We ask that the volunteer efforts continue to go through United Ways 211. I do want to mention that sandbagging efforts are not available at City Services or at the Public Works Department. So we are working, the sandbags that are available, the work that's being done at City Services Center is for public. It's what city staff is using. We're asking the public and the residents to use the other two locations at Newbo and at the Ellis Park. For low-lying areas, as the river continues to rise, we want to remind residents and businesses to take measures to protect your properties, starting on the lowest level. Look at your floor drains, egress windows, anything that you can protect to help yourself on the lowest level, and again, supplementing with the use of sandbags or other protective measures. And I want to thank our public works staff, our city staff. Everybody's been wonderful. Our outreach from communities, from adjacent communities, and from our local contracting community as we continue to put these measures in place. Thank you.
Thank you, Jen. And next is Chief English, our fire chief.
Good morning. Thank you. Again, my name is Mark English. I'm Cedar Rapids Fire Chief. My message is going to start and end the same way as it did yesterday. Safety is our number one priority. We've seen on the media people driving through the floodwaters. We very much discourage that. You don't know what's happened to the infrastructure underneath it. You don't know what potholes are there, et cetera. I'll also reiterate, stay out of flooded basements. They may be charged with electricity. There may be gas bubbling. Please just stay away from the flooded basements. As Jen said, the flood crest is still continued to be projected at 24 feet. The difference is it's projected to crest or to ramp up to that sooner. The crest is the same, but the ramp up to that is sooner. They're, according to the websites, they're looking at it reaching flood stage about 8 a.m. on Sunday. In the meantime, please, I encourage people wholeheartedly, look at where you live according to the flood maps. If there's a risk that you're going to get water, please start making preparations now to evacuate. We will continue to monitor the flood projections today, and we'll have an answer tomorrow morning at the 10 a.m. news conference if we're going to go ahead with the evacuations or not. But please take it upon yourself, look at where you live, look at the maps, and if you can at all, start making preparations to get out now. And again, I'll end it the same way I started it with the safety. Again, please don't drive through floodwater. Don't go into flooded basements. You don't know what's there. We want to make sure that we finish this event just like we did in 2008 with no fatalities and very few, if any, injuries. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next is Chief German.
Thank you. I'm Wayne German, Chief of Police for the City of Cedar Rapids. I can't overemphasize the message about safety. So currently officers are working with the public works staff, working with them, assisting them in closing streets as they do their work to prepare for the upcoming flooding. I need to emphasize, please do not, when the street is closed, please adhere to that closure. Allow the public works staff and the contractors to do what is needed. And then if streets are flooded or you do see the standing water, as Chief English said, please turn around. Don't try to drive through it. This is for your safety. We have a mobilization plan in place for police personnel. Basically, it's going to be all hands on deck. So every officer available on the department is going to be mobilized, and this includes our investigators and detectives. They will be in uniform and prepared to respond to calls for service and assist citizens as we proceed and monitor this situation.
Thank you, Chief. Our Director of Utilities, Steve Hirschner.
Good morning. Steve Hirschner, Utilities Director. I'd like to report that water treatment facilities are all operating normally at this time. We have placed 16 more wells in manual operation so that water production is not impacted by potential control issues or loss of communication. As mentioned by several previous speakers, we need to address changing conditions. In response to heavy local rains overnight and this morning, our river levels are expected to stay at or above the action levels. We have started, that we typically start raising our flood gates on the 5-in-1 dam. Slide gate number 3 has been raised, and all of those gates should be raised by the end of the day. There are a total of 5 gates that will be affected by this slide gate operation. Also, in response to some of the heavy rains that we've had overnight and are expected to have potentially through the flood crest, water pollution control is currently pumping about 100 million plus gallons a day. So staff is managing that according to our plans. I also wanted to mention solid waste. We'll have normal collection through today, but more information on collection next week, particularly yard waste collection, will be made available this weekend. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Just one housekeeping item. So for our press conference tomorrow, we'll be doing that at the Ice Arena at 10 a.m. We'll be changing the location due to potential impacts in downtown and potentially on this building, and that's why we're making the decision now to just meet at the Ice Arena at 10 a.m. and we'll do the same thing on Sunday. Would like to introduce one of our very important partners in this effort, and that's Doug Kopp from Alliant Energy to talk about impact on the electric system, particularly in downtown, but throughout the city.
Thanks, Jeff. Appreciate the opportunity. So let me start off with a little more emphasis on safety. So as you probably all are aware, electricity and water don't mix. So please follow the good advice. Don't go into flooded basements. That is taking a huge risk that you don't need to take. I want to just take a minute and let you know we're in full flood preparation mode at our company. Our employees are doing a wonderful job. We appreciate the effort that they're putting in to ensure that we have our power supply remains reliable for all of you. A couple things you should know. Since the last flood, since 2008, we have made significant improvements in our system, in our downtown system. So we're very pleased with that. Thankfully, that hasn't been tested. What we will find out a little bit more about it potentially here. I think the issue that you always have to think about is you don't know where water will go and what it will do when it comes in contact with our system, but we're in much better shape than we were before. So we expect that to give us a good opportunity to keep the power on in the community, both certainly outside the downtown area, but certainly in the downtown area. So there will be some potential outages just due to safety. So where customers have meters that are put into the flood zone, they may want those meters shut off, and we will oblige. So we'll be watching that. Low-lying areas, we'll have to look at that situation, but it'll be more on a situational basis. It would not likely be widespread. Thank you, Jeff.
Good. Thank you. Thank you, Doug. You know, hearing Doug's comments, I think it's important to reiterate that a lot of work has been done in many different areas to protect our city since 2008. And so whether it's, having, miles and miles of HESCO barriers at our disposal, or the tremendous improvements that have been made at the water and wastewater plants, the significant improvements that have taken place through the hard work of Alliant Energy, or the acquisitions of property, homes that were in harm's way that are no longer in that state, or a variety of infrastructure improvements that have been made. We are in a far better and stronger position to respond. And most importantly, the alliances we've formed and the lessons we've learned as to how to respond in a flood situation of this potential magnitude. So I appreciate, Doug, everything your company has done, and wanted to reiterate some of the efforts that have been made to place us in a far better position than in the past. With that, before I introduce Mayor Corbett, we're going to take some time for questions from the media or any member of the public, and then we'll turn it over to the mayor. Yes, Fransman, sure. For Jen Winter.
Can you talk a little bit more about the temporary flood barriers? I believe the city had something like a half mile or so in inventory. You got 7 miles on each side of the river. How much more will you be getting from other sources, and how quickly?
Okay. I'm just going to repeat the question for the benefit of the public. Dave, your voice is strong, but may not be for everyone else. So this is just a question regarding our flood protection system, particularly these HESCO barriers, and how we're going to protect the city with these barriers, and how many are out there and how many we're going to need.
Currently in the works, we've got a plan to deploy about 4,000 feet of the HESCO barriers, and then supplementing that with additional earth levees and berms. So right now our plan is fully to protect both sides of the river, on the east side from First Avenue down to 16th, and also some supplementing of HESCOs and earthen dams up in the Shaver Road area on the east side, and on the west side from the Time Check area down to Czech Village. Again, with that being said, we still want businesses and private residents to take your own measures to protect and do what you can to protect your own homes and businesses. There is always a chance that the temporary measures that we take could be breached or overtapped.
So how long does it take to get that in place, so that you're going to be ready by the time the crest is here, or enough ahead of time?
The question was, will we be ready by the time the crest comes? And, what we're projecting is yes. We've got multiple contractors mobilized. We've got more moving in all day today. We've got city crews and contractors that will be working all throughout the weekend to get these measures in place.
On the Alliant point, did I mishear that? Was that outages, or they'll be able to shut off power based on request, or is that strictly
Sure. So it was a question about Alliant Energy and outages and how those shutoffs are made and when.
Yes, some certainly by request, but we'll look at the situation. Safety is the first decision point, so we'll look at that. But again, our system is more robust than it was in 2008, so expect that to be fairly minimal. But we will work with individuals, so people should contact us if they need their power shut off, again, generally for a safety situation.
Is there a potential that someone would reach out and say, I think my power should be shut off, and you determine it shouldn't be?
No, we'll honor that. If they have a request to shut off their power, we'll come out and do that.
Further questions? Yes.
Hi, Chris, just a
Sure.
concerned citizen.
Sure.
I've got in-laws live in 9th and Penn, Northwest Time Check neighborhood. We're talking about we're taking everything out of the basement. Is there a concern over there that maybe we should be taking everything off the first floor? There's no second floor. Now there are ranch houses down there, and some neighbors are asking me, and I said,
Okay, so it's a question of there's been material taken out of the basement on Penn, but what about further floors? Is that necessary?
What we would say at this time is that right now we're planning for an elevation of about 24 feet. So relative to where we saw flooding in 2008, we're looking at about 7 to 8 feet below that. So our recommendation is anything that you can do to get your belongings up above that level, we would encourage you to do so.
Mr. Fransman. No, go ahead.
Are you seeing signs of more people moving those belongings and taking those precautions now that we did in '08 and sooner, because it seemed to catch a lot of people by surprise, because waters had never, come this far before, but I'm seeing a lot
Sure.
more people that are.
So it has to do with, and I personally, as visiting a number of neighborhoods, I've seen those kinds of preparations occurring. But I'll ask the fire chief who was here in '08.
You're exactly right. In '08, it was much less in advance. I am happy to say, only anecdotally, seeing many more people are starting to take that initiative and move now instead of waiting. As I said yesterday, if the evacuation comes, please heed that as soon as possible and don't wait till the last minute. So to answer your question, sir, yes, I think more people are heeding in the awareness earlier than they did in '08.
Yes, Adam.
Yes, I've got a question for you, and it's in regards to people that need, some type of accommodation. For example, elderly people without
Sure.
transportation, the disabled, with both in case of the probable evacuation and with, the moving of belonging and other volunteer needs. Is there a place they could contact to get those accommodations?
Sure. Leslie, do you want to mention the 211 system?
So if there,
This is Leslie. Why don't you come up forward? This is Leslie Wright from United Way. So, well, that probably can, but so it just has to do with if there's a need for evacuation. In the case of being someone that's elderly or needs extra help, how is that accomplished?
right now, what we're asking individuals to do is if they don't have friends, family, coworkers, perhaps their church who might help them, to call 211, and we're taking names and contact information, and as we're able to align volunteers or other options with those families, we're doing that. So far, we've only received a handful of calls regarding that.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Morelli.
Do you, what can the city withstand in terms of how effective will these countermeasures be? Like, how much protection will they provide? And then, do you have any kind of projections of how many properties, like how many properties might be affected?
We do have those projections, and I'll call on Director Winter to talk about those projections. I think the mayor is also going to cover that in his remarks as well as far as the projections. But in terms of how effective these measures will be, why don't you talk about that?
Right now, our immediate focus is to get, as I mentioned, on the limits on both the east and west sides of the river, up to that 24-foot elevation level of protection. Any areas that we can get above that, generally where we're building earthen berms and levees, it's a little easier for us to go higher than that. We will do that. But our immediate focus right now is to get all protection levels up to that 24-foot.
Does that mean that those areas should be safe up to 24 feet?
What that means is that we're putting temporary measures in place to protect, but we're still asking, again, businesses and residents to take precautions and do what they can to get their belongings out. It is likely, if the projection stays at 24 feet or gets increased, that we will still be evacuating that inundation area in case that the temporary control measures would be overtapped or if they would become breached. We still want everybody to be safe. So if those measures, if the forecast does not change, it is likely that we will still be evacuating the area.
Thank you, Gary.
Yeah, I got a couple of questions.
Sure.
I think Winter can answer.
Okay, good.
I'm worried about earthen dam being used in the Ellis Park area because the one in '08 collapsed. And I understand the HESCO barriers are much more protection. And the other question is, in '08, we had pallets of sandbags delivered. In the northwest side, we do have some people, it's kind of elderly. I would think that would help if they was delivered to certain corners of the neighborhood. I don't know if that's feasible, but that's the two questions I questioned.
Okay, so go ahead.
The first question on the delivering of the sandbags, to answer your question, partially that's why we opened that second sandbagging station in the Time Check neighborhood at Ellis Park. If you are unable to go there and get them, we would ask that you utilize that United Way 211 system to offer assistance with that. And In the case of the temporary protections, we are taking measures on the type of material that we are using on those earthen levees and berms. And in some cases, you'll see them enclosed in material, in casing, to help ensure their stability.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Timko. Yep, go ahead. Question.
When you deploy these, and I'm going to ask about Kingston because that's where we're working to protect, are they going to be running down the street, First Street? Are you going to run them through that park? Are they going to close the ends of the bridges?
Okay. So a question about how these are going to be deployed, and I think the answer is in different ways in different areas. But Jem, why don't you go ahead?
Yeah, how these measures are deployed will vary by location. We're working very closely with the contractors that we've got in those locations to determine the best method. In most cases, they will be running down the streets. So we intend to run down Ellis Boulevard, down 16th Avenue, down 8th Avenue. So in most cases, yes, you'll see these measures running down the streets, but it's going to vary by location.
Thank you. Any further questions? So next, we're going to introduce the mayor, but just a reminder of the next press conference, which is tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. at the Ice Arena. Also wanted to thank the council members for being here, as I said, but it's not regular that they're in back of me. I'm usually in back of the council. But we have Councilmember Justin Shields, Councilmember Scott Olson, Councilwoman Ann Poe, Councilmember Chris Julich. Oh, excuse me, I'm sorry. Okay. Yep, no, just Councilwoman Susie Weinock is here as well, so thank you very much. Again, any questions you have of me as city manager, you can find my email address on the city website, or you can call me directly. That information is also on the city website. We're doing a lot of work to keep our website up to date, so that's cedar-rapids.org. And again, we appreciate all of you being here, and it's now my pleasure to introduce Mayor Ron Corbett.
Thank you, Jeff. Yesterday, I started off my remarks saying that we have a team in place. The team has a plan in place, and the team is executing on that plan. But we can't do it alone, and I want to thank cities of Marion and Hiawatha, their mayors that have reached out, the city of Coralville that's sending up equipment in Johnson County, the governor, the city of Davenport, many individuals, communities, and local governments and businesses have reached out to help us. Thank you so much for caring about our community and offering the help. We still need more help, particularly in the sandbagging area. So the rest of today and this weekend coming up is where the residents want to support and help out. That's the best way, to show up at one of the two locations that we have for sandbagging down in the Newbo area and also out at Ellis. Jeff mentioned earlier about CRST's generous offer. They have 50 or so trailers on the west side that are vacant and available. So if anyone needs those, they'd be happy to drop that trailer off. People can load it, and then it will be secured and moved back out to the west side. Denver Anderson is the contact person out at CRST at 389-1795, 389-1795. I would just point to the blue maps that are a little difficult to see now because they're behind the HESCO barriers. People have asked how many parcels, how many properties are going to be affected in this 24-foot expected crest. And it's about 2,800 parcels. About 500 of those parcels are properties that the city had previously bought out after the 2008. So they're listed as a parcel, but it's just vacant land. So that brings us to about 2,300 parcels, about 389 commercial properties, and 1,349 residents. Many of those homes were flooded in 2008. And so my call to the residents that experienced 2008 and now are reliving that again, I'm sure the emotions are running high and swinging, on an hourly basis, and there may be a feeling of desperation of throwing your hands up. We want to assure you that you're not alone, that the community is here to help you. And so calling 211 for volunteers. If you need help moving things out of the basement, out of the first floor, we have 3 days. And we can save a lot in 3 days. But you need to call. And I encourage all the neighbors to check on the other neighbors to make sure that they're getting the help that they need. So it isn't just sandbagging, but call 211 if you need some help moving your possessions. And if you want to help people move their possessions, then I ask you to call 211. We were caught off guard a little bit last time, and this time we're not. We have 3 days to prepare for this, but you need to reach out and ask for help, and the city's here and the community's here for you. So please do that. Please call 211. And tomorrow we'll be here again at 10 a.m. at the Ice Arena to give you an update on everything that's happened over the last 24 hours, and then also incorporate any new news that we've received in the next 24 hours. So thank you again for very much, and all the individual department directors and staff and city manager will be around for one-on-one questions or one-on-one interviews. Thank you. And for the city council, I'd like them to stick around for a real quick meeting. We need to declare a state of emergency real quick.
Thank you very much.